Well, I had him a beetje lipstick om himself een beetje in te kleden.
Is het?
Ja, dat is zo'n beetje van een smash.
Is het een bewijsstuk daar vanavond?
Ja.
I spoke to you this morning, but this morning I still not received it. Will you
is it right?
That concerns the situation when you arrived at the scene at Wonderkop and the group of strikers was approaching you, but still at a little bit of distance.
Gate ge se ke tla go botsang sona go tjore ge ke seemo gore ne se le yang ha le hitla kwa ko Wonderkop ha di strikers di tla di dibile mme ba sampane ba le khakana.
You with me?
Utlwisisa?
Yeah,
I do understand.
Good. And what you've told us in your evidence and what appears very clearly in your statement also, quadruple D7, is that there was some disagreement amongst the security officers present. Mr. Mabilani wanted things done in a certain way. Disagreements were raised.
Ar ha ile gore go utlwisisa sentle a re mo quadruple D7 a re go bonagala go ne go na le diphapang ka puo magareng ga nyena di security le re Mabelane ka re Mabelane yena na batla go dira dilo ka tsela ya gago go yalo
ke nnete.
It is true.
And among those disagreements were very important matters such as the view that you held that there were not enough of you, not enough security officers to deal with the situation.
Are se se gologolo se ile gore ge ga go se wena o ne o ile wa bua ka sona se ne se go kgathatsa go gore ge ne le se ba ntsi nyena di security gore ge le tsenelle tiragalo eo.
Ke nnete.
It is true.
And also that in that situation an armored vehicle was necessary.
Le gore ge go tle le gone go dira seo le tshwantse ge le berekise yona kole wa bitsang gore ke armored vehicle.
Ke nnete.
It is true.
And basically it was your view, and you said the view of a number of other security officers, that you were in fact, your group was not in a situation or in a position where it could deal with that situation, deal with the strikers who were now rapidly approaching you.
A kere ke nnete gore lona maikutlo a nyena ine ile gore ge no le bona gore lo ka se khone go tsenella di strikers tsene se di tla di libile ka lebaka la gore ge ne le sa lekana.
Ke nnete.
It is true.
And as we know, in fact, it turned out to be the case, tragically, that you couldn't stop them.
Re ge ya ka re itse ka madimabe go ile ga ba selo se ileng gore ge sile sa ba godimo ga matlanyena hala gona gore ge le se lokise go tsa go se control.
Ke nnete.
It is true.
And I want them just to check a conclusion that I draw from this. The fact that you had this discussion at that scene as the strikers were approaching you on important matters like manpower, armored vehicle and the like, that tells me that there had not been planning beforehand on how to deal with a march of that kind.
Yena ha hitla ko pheletsong o tšho gore ka mantswe a mang a re go pepeneneng gore nyena lile la buisana ka puo e leng gore ge e ne le puo e botlhokwa e ne le lebane le yona o tšho gore ka mantswe a mang le itse gore o tšho gore ne le sena bona bokgoni ba gore ge o tšho gore sena di-security tse lekaneng gore le ka tsenelela di-strikers tseo tse ne di tla mo pele ga nyena seo se raya gore ge pele ga gore le ye koo ga la ka la nna hatse la buisana ka sone
ke nnete ka tsatsi leo ga re a buisana ka sepe e nnile fela gore re tsamaye re go patrola re bone gore ga gona any gathering.
Yes, it is true. On that day, we did not discuss about what was going to happen. We were just told to go and patrol to see if there was going to be a gathering.
Thank you, Mr. Masibi. Those are my only questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Something arising from Mr. Tip's questions. You say in your statement that Mr. Mabelane was he insisted that you try and stop the gathering.
A re ge go ya ka dipotso tse buileng ke Red Tip a re gona le se botlhokwa se ileng gore ge wena o ile wa re Mabelane o na a gatella gore ge le ire se ne tshwantse le se dire le tswele pele.
Do you know if there were specific instructions received by him about this?
Does he know?
Do you know if there were specific instructions received by him from anyone above?
A re ge e ka be wa itse na gore se ne se bua ke Mabelane motlhomong go ne go na le taelo e ne e tswa go ba godimo go yena.
Ga ke na kitso ewa ya gore go o ne e tswa mo go ene or o na kry instruction go tswa go godimo.
I do not know whether he got instructions from his seniors or it was his own idea.
And the disagreement about the lack of resources, was that conveyed up the line? Was that discussed with anybody higher up in command to Mr. Mabelane?
Gati a ke re wena o ile wa re ne di sena ditlhoko tsa gore ge le ka tsenella gore le shebane le di-strikers tse yaanong potso o batla go itse gore e ka be le ile la kgona na gore le bolele ba go godimo di-senior ka kopo eo ka pelaele eo ne le na le yone ka ditlhoko.
Ga re ya kgona ka gone go sena nako e enough and
we did not, as there was not enough time.
And no gona le banne ba le in charge ba ba tshwantseng ba etsele ko pele.
And there were those who were in charge who were supposed to take the matter further.
I don't understand that last part. What do you mean?
Re ne re sa dumalane le taelo ya ga Ntate Mabelane.
We disagreed with Mr. Mabelane's instruction.
But pateletsa gore re tswelele re zame go stopa badiri ba ne ba strikeile.
But he insisted that we should try and stop the strikers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Masibi.
Mr. Semenya, you wish to ask any questions?
Indeed, Chair, just a few. Mr. Masibi, let's go to your statement dated the 1st of October 2012.
Gati ge ya go statementing sa gago se kwetsweng se na le date ya di 1 sa October 2012.
The one but last page indicated 30 on top. You asked certain questions there.
Go tswa ge leqephe la bofelo le ileng gore ge did Mr. Semenya say indicating 30? Mr. Semenya?
Yes, 30.
Are e bontshang 30 bona ga gona le 30 mo go yona.
Mr. Chairperson, is page 4 of the paginated bundle before Mr. Masibi.
Okay, ra o thusitse ref on us. Are ke page 4 ya tokomane o itshwereng ra o itshwere?
Okay, itshwere.
I want to have it on record that there you are asked in the middle of the page.
Are mo butswa potso mo magareng a leqephe leo.
When you arrived at Wonderkop Hostel after returning from EPL, did you experience or perceive anything different from the illegal gatherers other than your previous experience with illegal gatherings? You see
Re
that?
putso ki e go te ha le hitla ko Vonderkop hostel ka mora gore ge le tloga ko EPL e ka be e gona le se le se boneng kapa selo se ileng gore ge se le sa bonala eka se hetogile mo di strikerseng ya jwale kana ba khobokane ka ntle ga se e leng gore ge wena o ile o no se bona na kwe strikes se se tswela pele ga letsatsi le.
It was your answer, was it not, that yes, this crowd seemed different?
Gate karaba ya gago mo A1 e re a setlhopha se sona ne se sa tshwana go yalo.
Yeah, ke nnete.
It is true.
You are then asked in what way it should be, were they different, and your answer is their ranks seems closer than my previous experiences. They reacted differently to my previous experiences. When we requested them to stop, they went into a crouching position and continued banging their weapons together.
Gore ne ba sa tshwane ka tsela e heng ke ne le potso eo karaba ya gago wa re setlhopha se o tsore ka mantswamang ne go bonagala ile gore ke batho ba bereka mmogo gona le tsela e re ba boneng ka teng pejana wa utla matsatsi a hitileng le gore ha ba arabela o tsore ka mantswamang go tsa boitshwaro ba bona le bo sa tshwane le tsela e ne ba itshwere ka yona ka matsatsi a hitileng le ha re ba kopa gore ba yeme ba ile e be ile gore ke batho ba ileng gore ge ba ile ba go tsore ka mantswamang ba tswela pele ge ba shapanya di betsa tsa bona ka yona tsela e.
Ke nnete ke se se diragetseng ka tsatsi lewa.
It is true, that is what happened that day.
You are then asked, did they seem more organized, and your answer to that was yes.
Gati o ile a botswa potso gore ba ne ba bona gala ile batho ba ileng gore ge ba itherile ebile ba bereke ba ira selo mmogo karabe ga go ya re e.
Ya ke nnete ke itse ka re yes.
Ke nnete. My apology. Yes, I did say yes.
And the next question is, in what way were they organized? And you say they acted in unison, almost as if they were trained or coached as to what to do.
Gati o ile a botswa gore ge ka tsela e heng o ra yang ha o bua yalo wena o bo o re ne ba bonagala ba dira dilo mmogo sa utlwa go ka tla re go na le motho o ileng aba train go tsore ka mantswe bang go tsa gone ya ka go coacha go tsore ka mantswe ya ka dibolo gore ha re direng nyana gore ba tshwantse ba dire yang.
Gone go le yalo mme ke nnete.
It is so. It is true. It was like that.
It was your answer a yes, also to the next question, whether their movements were precise or deliberate.
Gate wile wa araba gape wa re ha go butswa gore ge tsela e ne ba tsamaya ka yona tsore ka mantswama ine ila le bukemisetso ine itshwana ina le bukemisetso.
Yes ke nnete.
Yes, it is true.
And it is typed, would you call it almost militant? And you said most definitely.
Gati wena o ile ngwa re ka be boitshwaro bo ba bona le bo bontsha gore ge o tsore ka mantswamang ba na le boikemisetso ka matla o tsore ka mantswamang ba ikemiseditse wena bo re ka nnete tsore ba bontsha gore ba montwe.
Ya ke nnete.
It is true.
Next question is, looking at your description of their behavior, do you think that they were waiting for your arrival, i.e. an ambush?
Gate ge wena o ile wa re he ha o ba shebile tsela e ne ba itshwere ka teng le se ne ba se dira wena e ka bo o nagana gore ge go tla ga bona go ba ga bona mole ne ba le emetse o tsore ka mantswe a mang ba batla go le dikanyetsa kapa go le tlhasela.
Mo ke itse ka no ne ba kalwa ga go tlhokega or ga ba that's why kere when is necessary so ne ba sa latele rona gore tlhasela ka tsatsi leo.
No, by that I meant they were definitely willing to fight us, but only if necessary.
Yeah, that's what you say, that they were definitely willing to fight if necessary.
Gore ge ne ba ikeme o tsore ka matsogo ne ba bonagala ile batho ba ikemiseditse go lwa a go tlhokagala. Go yana?
Ke nnete.
Yes, it is true.
The next question put to you was, were they better organized than previous groups? And you said, yes, definitely.
Go thwa setlhopha se boditse gore bona ba bonagala ile batho ba ileng ba itera ebile ba bereka mmogo go na le group e letsetsa pele wena wa araba wa re ke nnete.
Ya ke nnete ke arabile ka yes.
Yes, it is true. I answered yes.
You see, for the record, Brigadier Khalets almost describes this group in the terms you do, but Mr. White, who's an expert, disagrees. Do you confirm this to be accurate, though?
Ra e re go bolelle go na le re wa lepodisa e leng Brigadier Khalets gate le yena o tlhalositse tsela e batho ba ne ba itshwere ka teng ka tsela e le wena o itlhalosang ka teng mme sa bobedi gate go na le re white o ke o mongwe o go tswang ke expert motho o na le kitso e tsitsitseng o e leng gore yena ha a dumellane le se wena le re Khaletse le se buang gate o reng ka seo sa ga re white.
Chair, I don't want to interrupt my learned friend's cross-examination, but if I could ask him for a reference to where Mr. White disagrees with this description of the group.
God, if you think it's now, he'll give it to you, otherwise he can give it to you later.
I'll give it to my learned colleague later. Mr. White says the diagnosis that Khaled uses about this crowd fueled his briefing of the members, that there were some organized group, and he says that was wrong. But I'll give it to my learned colleague, and those are the questions I have for the witness.
O tla kgona gore ge a fe mmemole gore ge ke eng se bakang gore a bue yalo a re ge ke tsona dipotso tšore ka mantso manoso a rabera.
Before I invite Mr. for us to re-examine, is anyone else who wishes to cross-examine?
Chair, could I please pose two questions? I said I didn't have any, but they're really more of a formal nature.
You repented of that statement.
I'm repenting.
Repentance accepted.
And I do beg your pardon, Chair.
Mr.
Masibi, the statement they call the ICAM statement.
ICAM statement, yeah,
that formed part of the ICAM investigation that was conducted by Lonman.
Is
that correct?
Correct.
You were interviewed when you prepared the statement. Is that correct?
Yes, I was interviewed.
Can you remember?
Ask questions.
Yes. Who interviewed you? Can you remember the person who did the interview with you?
I cannot recall the name, but he was an officer from Safety Department.
Safety Department.
As well, safety.
The ICAM report final, if we could have quadruple D2, I want to just show you the names and see if this maybe helps you. The final page. You see, there's some names. You say safety, the document, if you see there on the screen. It's signed.
Na page here.
It's signed by Philip Scholes.
Philip Scholes.
Jacques Erasmus, head of safety.
Jacques Erasmus, safety.
Then there's names Obed Marco, Chris Tembe, Jakes Kruger, and Chris Nell.
Gati go na le maina a Obet Mako, Chris Tembe, James Kruger, le Chris Nell.
So there's 3 gentlemen there with safety in their titles. Jacques Erasmus, who's head of safety, Jakes Kruger, who's the chief safety officer, and Chris Nell, who's a safety officer.
Gati ge wa bona ge go na le maina a mararo a ile gore ge go bua ka safety. Gati Jakes Erasmus ke ena head of safety, ibe re James Jakes Kruger ke chief safety officer, ibe Chris Nell o ile ge safety officer. Wa bona maina a?
Yeah, ke a bona.
I do see the names.
Okay, can you remember if any of those interviewed you?
Gati ge a ka be wa gopola na gore go batho ba ne ba ka go tsa ba bararo ba ke mo go heng wa bona o ile ga go interview.
Enele Jakes Kruger.
It was Jakes Kruger
Ana le o mongwe wa safety ga ke gopole leina la gagwe.
with another safety officer whom I cannot remember,
And then le Chris Tembe.
and Chris Tembe.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Mr. Fanas, before you re-examine the witness, sorry, can we have that back on the screen, what we've just seen?
Da go busetswe se re se boneng pele ga gore ge a go botsa gape re fan us.
Before you re-examine Mr. Fanas, can you tell us, you can't tell us now, you can perhaps tell us later, what's meant by the phrase at the very top there, potential consequence, severity, type and ranking, safety dash level 5, and then above that appears the words actual consequence, severity, type and ranking, safety / level 5. What does that mean?
I'll take instructions and revert, Mr. Chair.
Thank
I
you.
don't know the answer at this stage.
Go tsho gore ge mo ne ba motsa o bona ke a se tsekwetseng go godimo kwale gore ge se tlhalosa eng a re ga ya nong ha na karaba mme ge o tla batlisisa o tla boela mo go re modula setilo.
You know the answer, Mr. Masivi. What is meant by that phrase that I read out?
Masenya wa bona mo le mo go thuang actual consequences ne severity, type and ranking, safety level 5 gore go tsho gore level 5 go tsho gore ba bua ya le potential consequences, severity, type and ranking go tsho gore ge gore wa utlwisisa wena wa itse na gore ba tlhalosana ba bua ka se mantswe a go level 5 ba bedi ba safety level 5 tshireletso level 5
Ke ge ba rate risk gore ene le mo bokae because level 5 ke level ya bofelo.
It is when they rate the risk level, because level 5 is the last level.
Does that mean the highest?
Which or kamantswa mankie ko ke bokotsi bo godimo thata.
The most severe?
Go tsore ge bo tsitsitseng.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
You can't get more severe than that.
Re ge ka se bo bokotsi go fitisisa le seo level 5 le 5.
Okay, the highest. Ka mokgoba system e ba e berekisa.
Level 5 is the highest according to the system they use.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Fanas?
Yes, Mr. Chairperson, I think it's when there are fatalities, but I'll confirm and revert to the Commission. If I may just...
Tseneletsa gape le ha gona le ba latlhegelang ke maphelo mme ge o tla batlisisa ka yona.
Mr. Masibi, in your time as a security officer at Lonman, have you previously experienced a similar situation to what you experienced on the morning of 12 August 2012?
Gate re Masibi di limo tsohle tse wena o ile wa di bereka ko Lonmin e ka be o kile wa bona so ile wa se bona se tshwana le se e diragetseng ka di 12 tsa August 2012. It was a first. I never saw such.
And then finally, in answer to a question from Commissioner Hemraj, you were asked how long there was between what you called the disagreement between some of the security officers and Mr. Mabalani and the actual attack. Can you give us an indication in terms of time?
Gate ge me Hemraj o ile ga botsa potso gore ge go tseile nako e kae ga utlwana ra ha ntse le gogisana kapa go sa dumellane le re Mabelane. So a re o ka kgona go bolelana gore go tseile nako e kaka e kae?
E ne e ka nna 5 to 10 minutes.
About 5 to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Mr.
Thank you.
Chairperson, those are my questions.
Any question you would like?
Mr. Weasley, are you going to deal with the events analysis at all?
Not with this witness, Chair.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Masibi. You'll be excused. Thank you for coming to give evidence. You'll be excused on this basis, but if it's necessary for us to get you back, we won't have to subpoena you. You'll agree to come back just when you're asked to do so. If you're prepared to accept that, you may leave. You may go.
Re Masibi gate modulasetulo a re ge wa leboga matsapa a ga gore o tlo fana ka bo baki bo fileng mo commissioning a re ge o go batla go itsise se latelang gore go ka direga gore ha go tlhokagala gore o phete o bitswe gape gore o boe o tlo pheta ge o thuse ka bona bopaki a re o ikemiseditse seo na gore ha ba ka o boe gape o tla kgona go boa.
Ga ke na bothata le sewa.
I have no problem with it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. You're excused. Mr.
Mr. Chairperson, may I ask for a short adjournment while we arrange for our next witness, who's Mr. Julius Mortlagelwa, to get into the witness box?
Yes, certainly. How long do you need?
10 minutes maximum, thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
We'll adjourn for 10 minutes, maximum.
talk, you push the button, the red light goes on. You
The commission resumes. Again, upon. All right, there's no need.
The commission resumes. Would you...
My colleague is taking over.
I see. All right. Mr. Finas, your next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Chairperson, perhaps before you swear the witness, and if we can just go through the housekeeping exercise again. There are 4 documents. I understand none of them are annexures yet before the Commission. Exhibits before the Commission yet. So if we could perhaps just mark them as exhibits, please. Quadruple D range.
The affidavit type version, which is item 1 in the bundle, that's an affidavit dated the 17th of August, made by the witness. That will be quadruple D10. Then you've got a handwritten version of the affidavit. Is that the same affidavit, actually? But
there's some differences between the
some
two.
Differences, I see. All right. So that will be quadruple D.
Sorry, Chair. The typed affidavit is already double Z4.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Double Z4. Thank you very much. So we can keep quadruple D1. Quadruple D10 for the handwritten version. And then there's a statement dated the 2nd of July, that's your item 3. That could be quadruple D11. And then there's what's described as Annexure JM1 ICAM statement, the 26th of September. That's not before us yet.
That is probably more convenient for... Sorry.
That is quadruple A40.
Sorry?
The ICAM statement is quadruple A40.
Yes, I thought we'd seen it before. Thank you very much. So item 4 is quadruple A40. We've got that already. So effectively, we've only got 2 new exhibits.
Correct.
That's quadruple D10, which is the handwritten version of the affidavit of the 17th of August, and a statement dated the 2nd of July. Would you please swear the witness in, please, Mr. Interpreter? At first, if he's prepared to swear, take an oath, and Mr. Interpreter,
I'm prepared to take an oath.
Would you stand up, please? Will you swear the evidence you will give before this commission will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please raise your right hand and say, I swear so help me God.
Taken an oath, Your Lordship.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vanas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Mortelgelwa, where are you employed?
A Lone Mill Platinum Mine.
At Lone Mill Platinum Mine.
And what position do you occupy there?
Senior Security Officer.
He's a Senior Security Officer.
And how long have you been working in that position?
Ke simolotse go sebetsa ko Lone Mill ka 2008 go fitlhela le ga jeno.
I started since 2008 up to date.
There's a bundle of documents before you. I'd like to refer you to the first document in the bundle. That will be Exhibit double Z4, Mr. Chairperson. It runs on for 3 pages. Can you identify that document, please?
Yes, I know it.
And there's a signature on the last page, on page 3. Is that your signature?
That is my signature.
And have you read through this document?
I read it.
And do you confirm the contents of the document?
I do, Chair.
And can you confirm that this statement was signed by you at about 9 o'clock on the 17th of August 2012?
Oh, please, I will we send at 9 o'clock. Cut 17. 11. Cut 17 or 11. Yeah, I said the time is 11 o'clock. The date is the 17th, 17 August.
Was it at 11 o'clock that you signed the statement?
Yeah. That is the truth, yes.
Mr. Chairperson, if you look above the 9 o'clock, there's actually 11 o'clock underneath Marikana and the date. Towards the bottom of page 3.
It looks as if it was sworn to, attested before it was actually signed by the witness. But I don't think anything turns on that in view of the fact he's confirmed the contents now.
Thank you, that's all. And then if you look at pages 4 to 12, there's a handwritten statement. Have you read through that statement?
Statement is Yes, I see that.
And who took the statement? Can you please tell the Commission?
Kimang, what those statements, sir?
Statement is again that the police.
The certain policeman is the one who wrote it.
And then if you go to page 13, that will be exhibit quadruple D11. There's a further statement. Can you confirm that that's your signature?
Asking whether you refer to the typed one?
The start one.
Yeah, says I'll type you. 18. Signature again.
Yep.
Yeah. Signature we got.
The signature again.
Yeah. I noticed my signature.
Have you read through this statement?
I read it, yes.
And you can do you confirm the content of the statement as well?
There's a certain portion which I disagree with it in the statement.
Can you please show the Commission which portion you disagree with?
Portion 14.
Portion 14.
Yeah, portion 14 and portion 19. Portion 14 and portion 19.
Both portion 14 and 19.
Is that on page 13?
Page 13.
There are only 10 paragraphs on page 13.
The type version is referring to page 2.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Of the first statement. All right, please take us to that's paginated page 2, Mr. Chairperson. Why don't you agree with Mr. Motlogelwa?
Okay.
He asked us whether he can read it
Please do.
to the Commission.
Which paragraph you're going to read to us?
14. The type statement, number 14.
Page 14.
In paragraph 14.
Yeah.
Paragraph 14, yes. Yeah.
What is there a problem with paragraph 14? Is there something you don't agree with?
Paragraph. Mr. Namelano ordered us to shoot at the protesters with their bullets. Yeah,
Perhaps if they can just put it on the screen, Mr. Chairperson, for those who don't.
The portion which I
paragraph on the screen.
Chair, the portion which I disagree is where it starts that Mr. Mabelani ordered us to shoot at the protesters.
You say that's not correct. What should it say?
Oh, Monsignor, na Natwabelani Hantariki Tunyabato.
He did not tell me, that is Mr. Mabalan, that I should shoot at the protesters.
I see. So you say that statement that he ordered you to shoot, that's not correct. That should be in the statement.
It is incorrect here, Chair.
Perhaps I can clear it up, Mr. Chairperson. On the day of the incident, on the 12th of August,
but you didn't. That's correct. So to say we shot is also wrong. It's your companions, or some of them, may have shot, with colleagues may have shot. Is that right?
That's the portion which I disagree, Your Lordship, that I have said those words.
The other security officers shot at the strikers, but you didn't have a firearm with you.
Yes, my colleagues, they had the firearms. They're the one who shot, but I didn't.
Is there anything else you wish to draw to the attention of the Commission?
Paragraph 19.
Paragraph 19, Chair.
What's the problem with paragraph 19? Paragraph 19 reads, the protesters used the same movement. You're not talking about things that you saw on Monday the 13th of August in this paragraph. It reads, the protesters used the same movement of crawling tactics as used on Sunday when they killed the two security officers. I can be able to identify the people who were leading, giving instructions, and always being in front of the group. I can possibly identify the people who murdered the two security officers and the police officials. Now, that's what that paragraph says. Now, what's wrong with it? What should it say?
I can possibly identify the people who murdered the two security officers and the police officers.
As he said, Your Lordship, the last portion of paragraph 19.
Did you not say that?
I did not say that at all.
What did you say? Who were you possibly able to identify?
Yeah, Monday, on a Monday. The bridge.
Well, I was referring to the people with whom I spoke at the, near the bridge on Monday.
Earlier in the statement, you mentioned that you were on the bridge and the group of strikers came up to you and they wanted to go on to the shaft to see if people were working, and you spoke to them. You explained that in the statement. And you say that's what you were talking about. You weren't able to identify those people.
Didn't it?
That is the truth, Chair.
Right. I think we've now sorted out the corrections.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Now we can get to the actual content of the statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Motlagewa, I'd like to take you to paragraph 6 of your first statement. That's in paginated page 1, which deals with Saturday, the 11th of August, 2012.
I see that, sir.
I want you to please tell the Commission in your own words what you saw on that day. you, with respect to one of the few witnesses who saw the altercation that took place on the 11th near the NUM office. So please tell the Commission what you saw that day.
Okay, ka letsatsi la Saturday ka nna ka one nako e beilweng.
Yeah, the day, that is on Saturday, the time which has been mentioned there.
Ile ka fumana menyenyetsi ya gore bontate ba ne ba kopane mo pele ga stadium.
I got a report that some men have been gathered at the stadium.
Maikaelelo a bone e ne ile go ya ko diofising tsa NAMO mme ile go di fisa.
I got a report that they were on their way to the NUM office to go and ban it.
Maikaelelo a bone e ne ile gore ga ba kgotsofala gore go na le batho ba ba tsamaisitseng batho go le maabadi bosigo ba ba isa mosebetsing.
They said that they were dissatisfied because there were some other people who took some people during the night and take them through to work. Seeing that, I noticed that it will cause some confusion. Then I went together with my colleague Elias Libakwane. We proceeded through to the NUM office. We went to the NUM office to go and inform them that there were some other people who have gathered at the stadium and they were on their way to come through to the NUM office with the aim of coming to ban the office.
Is that the report Lineman Security had received, that this group of people wanted to burn the NUM office down?
Yes. Yeah, those were the report we got.
So you went to the NUM office to warn the people in the NUM office?
If
yeah, we went through to the NUM office in order to inform if there's anybody in the NUM office. We're going to inform them that there were some other people, there's certain people who will be coming through to the offices to come and ban it.
And what happened when you got to the NUM office?
Once I arrived at the NUM office, I met the chairperson.
Oh, the late Mr. Brown.
The late Mr. Brown, who was the chairperson. I met him there at the offices.
Yeah. The NUM chairperson?
Yeah, chairperson ya NAM ya ko Roland Shafti, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown, yeah, the one Mr. Brown, the Roland chairperson of NAM.
That was his nickname, remember? He gave evidence
before. It's a nickname, yeah.
Yeah, that's the nickname which I'm using.
And what did he say to you?
Ofiseng ga ka ke ile ka bolela ke re bontate go na le menyetsi ya gore gate batho ba tsileng ba tsa mo go lona mme re kopa ile gore gone ke nnete ba tlo ofisa di ofisi kopa le tse mo di ofising tseo le tseng ska ga nna.
Once I met him there, I informed him there that there's some rumors that there will be some people who will come through to their office to come and ban it out. So they should leave the office.
Maybe bamblalla bone gore bone ga gona go ba yang teng.
Then they told me that they are not leaving their offices.
Well,
I gave them the message, then I left them because they remained in the office.
And where did you go to?
Why, guy? Well, I went to a few paces away. I cannot indicate now to show the distance between where I went and wait. Just closer to the NUM office.
I'm going to ask Mr. Wesley to perhaps assist us, and if we can perhaps put up a picture of the area in the NUM office, and perhaps the witness can then show. Perhaps if we can go to exhibit quadruple A 35.2, I'm told that's a bird's eye view. perhaps get that on the screen.
Mr. Tip is going to tell us the name of Mr. Brown.
Yes, Chair. It's Mr. Seteleli, who has testified in these proceedings. As you know, he is deceased.
Yes.
And he was commonly known as Brown. So there's no doubt that Mr. Brown is...
that was the evidence that we heard.
To whom Mr. Motlachelo is referring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. All right, Mr. Motlachelo, can you orientate yourself there? Perhaps if I can go, and I don't have the strobe with me, Mr. Wesley can perhaps just put it on the NUM office for us.
So I remember it's a dangerous thing I'm doing now, but as far as I can remember, if one looks at the picture, on the right-hand side there's a road proceeding from the bottom right, close to the bottom right-hand corner of the photograph, diagonally to the left, as it were, up virtually the whole of the photograph. And near the top of that, on the right-hand side, there are two buildings. One of them has a reddish roof, and the other a whitish roof. The whitish roof, according to the evidence, was the substation of the police service, which was not always staffed, apparently, and the red one was the NUM office. Am I correct?
Can you just put a...
I see that here, Chair.
Is that the NUM office?
Office NUM.
Or was that the NUM office at the time?
Yes, that is the truth.
And the one next to it, just below it on the photograph with the whitish roof, that was, I think, a police substation. It wasn't always staffed there by the police. Is that right?
The substation here.
That is okay. Perhaps if you could just use the red strobe lights and show us where you and your colleague went and stopped after you had spoken to Mr. Brown.
As is indicating there on the chart, Your Lordship. It's indicating where he had stopped. He was waiting.
He's indicating is what looks like an open area above the NUM office. In fact, if one moves one's eye upwards, above the NUM office in the photograph is what looks like another building. You can see the roof, and then next to it and above it there's an open area, and that's where he's pointing.
Open area. I'm indicating, Chair, is the tuck shop. Behind the tuck shop there's a street which comes in there. It's where I've waited.
But what I described as an open area was in fact a street.
All right, and then please tell the Commission, what did you see over there?
Yeah,
mo fa ke ntse ke eme fana ha ke ya go ntlheng ya ka ya bo paragraph 7.
I'll now proceed to paragraph 7. Paragraph 7, Chair.
Bontate botlhe ba ne ba le ko NUM offices ba ka nna palo ya 30.
The people who were in NUM's office, I'll show you their number. They could be 30 in number.
Ba ne ba tswile mo officing mme ba eme mo pele ga office.
They came out of the office and stood just outside the office.
Me ya re hantse ke eme fao ka utlwa molaetsa gore ke nnete boididi jwa batho bale ba mo tseleng ke nnete ba ya ba lebile ko di officing tsa NUM.
While still standing there or waiting there, I got the message that there were some people who were coming through to NUM office.
Le nna ka utlwa ka dipina tsa batho ha di ntse di tla di lebeletsa gore ke nnete ba ya ba lebile ko ntlheng eo.
I could also hear some people singing to indicate that they were coming towards NUM office.
They're coming towards the NUM office from, as one looks at the photograph, from below the office as one sees it on the photograph.
Okay. Bane ba tlhaga mo. A ke re ke taxi rank fa.
As indicating, where I'm indicating is the taxi rank. They were from that direction, from the taxi rank.
The rank you show is more or less in line with a road which a T junction, a road which proceeds at right angles towards the left of the photograph. There's an intersection between that road and the road I described earlier, the one that runs from the bottom diagonally from the bottom of the photograph near the right-hand corner, up slightly towards the left. That intersection is where you're pointing out, and the taxi rank is there.
Intersection, you know, you want more taxi rank.
Taxi rank e fela fa. Mo peleng ana fo ke taxi rank wa bona mo.
As I indicate, Your Lordship, that's super happy. It's situated somewhere there.
Stop sign e fela.
That's
Mo
stop
peleng mo
sign.
ke taxi rank e fela.
That's the taxi rank where I'm indicating.
Now these people were coming up that street in the direction of the Nomov.
Eh ba tsamaile go tloga mona, ba tsamaya so.
Indicate now that they came.
Indicating the route
you indicate that they came from along that road, which is part of the T junction I referred to, the one that runs more or less parallel with the bottom of the photograph, and which joins up with the other road I described at the point that you've just referred to. They came along that road, moving from left to right on the photograph, and then presumably they turned to their left and came up the other road in the direction of the NUM office. Is that right?
Indicating, he said they turned to the left as they were coming.
I wonder if it might not assist for me just to remind the Commission that at the time that we presented evidence concerning this, during the testimony of Mr. Setleli and Gegeleza, we introduced 3 photographs, YY, 1, 2, and 3, which recorded these areas and labeled each of the streets, and it might be easier to say street number B than to try to describe it here.
Very good idea, Mr. Stipp. I was trying to do my best with the photograph before us.
Quite so, Chair,
but
yes.
It will make things much easier, I think, if we look at those photographs. Perhaps they could be shown to the witness. Give the exhibit numbers again, please, Mr. Tipp.
Chair, the exhibits are YY 2.1.2.3. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Tipp. That's an important contribution to the Commission. Can you see that photograph now? This photograph shows us on the left-hand side the football stadium. You see that? And then there's a road just below the football stadium that runs past the Shargan workshop and eventually intersects with the road we referred to earlier, the one that runs from the bottom right-hand corner diagonally slightly to the left, past the, it looks like the hospital, past that intersection we talked about, the taxi rank, and then towards the NUM office. It's called Street B on this photograph. That's Street B. Street A is the one that comes from below the football stadium, and then Street D is the one immediately below the, just be on the right-hand side of the that police substation. And there's another street, Street C, which runs from Street B towards Street D. Is that as you remember it?
I see that, Chair.
Tsela ba tsamileng ka one ba simolotse ba tsamaya mo go tloga mo Street A.
Their route started from Street A.
Go fitlhella mo le mo e reng stop sign ba thena to the left, e ka re ba lebile ko street C.
They walk up to the stop sign, then they turn to the left, turning to street C.
And how many of them were there approximately, Mr. Motlagewa?
Yo, go ya ka pono ya matlho, e ne le batho ba bangata.
Well, as a mere estimation, there were many people just looking at them.
And were these people armed?
Mo ga ka bona ka gore nna ke ne ke emetse kgale le bona.
Well, that I could not see because I was far away from them.
And what happened then?
And then?
You said they were singing. Could you hear what they were singing?
Ga ka utlwa bana ba bina ya mare fela ke utlwa modumo wa pina.
Well, I could hear the sound of people sing that, yeah, they were singing, yes.
How level mo chupong ele ya street C?
When one look at street C,
ba ke ba boneng batho ba fitile mo le ga ba kena ka mo street C ba fitile mo morago mo lo bona mo ka tsela e ya ga e tsamaya go godimo mo le ba tsamaile fa.
the people, some of the people, they walk in the way I'm indicating without turning to the in-C street.
What you indicated was they walked up the street, which is described as Street B, actually, towards the NUM office, and they came more or less opposite the street, which is marked C on the photograph. That's what you told us.
That is so
you. What I want to know from you, you said they were singing. I want to know whether you could hear what they were singing.
Awa, nna ke ne ke dutse mo koloing ke utlwe fela modumo gore ke batho ba opela mare pina le ba opela ga ka e utlwa pina.
Well, seeing that I was seated in the car, I could hear that they are singing, but I could not understand clearly what type of a song they were singing.
How lebelela fan?
If one looks where I'm indicating,
it's an open space.
It's an open space.
Bontate bana ba eme fan?
Those men who were standing there,
indicating the open space which is below the letters WPL, which are in brackets, which are in line with the wording NUM office.
Yes.
Bontate bana ba eme fan mo pele ga NUM office.
Those men who stood just right in front of the NUM office,
ba tswile mo ba taboga ba latela bana.
They came there running, following those people in the street.
Baba fa bana ke bone ba simolotseng ba siela morago go tla mo.
Ba fale ba kae?
A kere ba fa bana.
Hey.
Ba simolotse ba lelekisa ba tla fa mo morago mo.
Well, they chased them and then they ran towards the direction where he's indicating.
Go tlogeng fana ya nna tlhakatlhakano fela mo na batho botlhe ba tla ba siela ntlheng ena.
Well, it was just a confusion. Now they were chasing each other. And then they ran down the street now.
What the witness showed was that they ran from in front of the NUM office down back towards down towards in the direction of the intersection that we've referred to, intersection between Street A and Street B.
Okay, no intersection.
Correct,
Chair.
Chair.
I'm told that I described incorrectly. So can you show it to us again, please?
Batho ba di buang ka bone ba tlile ba opela go fitlha fa.
They were singing up to where I'm indicating those people who were singing.
How lebella go fana go na le ntwe ka re ke container ene le container ya MTN.
If one looks just in the neighborhood, there's a container. It seems as if it was MTN
Chair,
container.
the interpreter is not speaking into a mic that is on. It's not going on record.
Sorry. Sorry.
Could you repeat your translation of what he said? What he showed us was they were more or less in line with a motor car, I think it is, which was in in the street in line with what's described as satellite police station. Those are the people singing. They got about that far. He then spoke about a container, an MTN container, which I seem to remember we saw at the inspection in Loco when we went there. And that is, can you perhaps show that to us on the photograph?
ha o lebella mo moraga ga yone e leng ntlha ya police station go na le container e ne e le fana.
Yeah, if one look at the back of the police station, there was a container here situated there.
Batho ba ne ba ntse ba tla ba opela bongwe ka bongwe ba bongwe ba bone ba tsamaetseng ntlheng yone e.
Those who were singing, some of them, they moved towards that direction.
Ke ba batho ba ke ba boneng bao.
Those are the people whom I have seen.
Yeah, that's further up. That's more or less in line with the NUM office, the left-hand side of the NUM office, as one sees it on the photograph.
Yes.
Go fitlheng fela ga bone fana.
Once they arrived at the spot where I'm indicating,
there's
a fence which surrounds the NUM office. There's a corner there, one can move along the fence. NUM office, yes. The NUM office people, they were standing where I'm indicating.
The NUM people were standing. Is it the NUM people you're talking about? They were standing below the letter WPL on the photograph.
Yeah, the NUM people, they were standing there, yes. They leave that place and then they follow those people. Because those people, they came running in that direction where I'm indicating. Then I noticed those people, they were running now down as I'm indicating. Now there was a confusion. They were chasing each other, some going down. I was at the top there, as I'm indicating, I could see what is happening.
I'm sorry, I don't quite follow who was chasing whom here.
Contribute to the debate. Yes. Who wants to contribute first?
Indeed.
What do you want to say?
The interpretation is something else. It's going to be very difficult for people that will be reading the record to get clarity as to who was chasing who.
I'm trying to get clarity there. The first point you indicated, I think. Sorry, you also wanted to speak, sir.
Yes, Chair, it's the same point, Chair. And what the witness said, Chair, was that there was confusion, but what was clear is that those coming from that direction were being chased down. So it wasn't chasing of each other. So I think.
All right, let's take it slowly. I think you told us the NUM people were standing more or less below the letters WPL on the photograph. And I think you indicated the other people, the ones who'd been singing, would come up that street, what street it's marked B, and they appear to have turned to the right below the words NUM office. In other words, just beyond the NUM office itself, which is shown on the photograph. Is that right? Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the NUM people started chasing them. Is that right?
Yeah, the NUM people, they were the first to come out chasing those people.
And those people, as you call them, that's to say the singing people who come to the NUM office, they then ran away. Is that right? In which direction did they run?
Yeah, those people who were singing, they ran away, yes.
In which direction did they run? Perhaps you can show us that.
Okay.
Show that they ran back down the way they'd come, down Street B, in the direction of the intersection we spoke about. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. I think, does that clarify the problem that those who were looking mystified earlier? All right, okay.
That's true.
now you can go on with your story. I think, Mr. Van As, I'll give you a witness back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Did you hear any firearms being discharged? Did you hear any gunshots?
No, I didn't hear the sound of a firearm.
And you say in your statement you later heard that 2 people had been shot, but you didn't see that, did you?
Mara urile ka statement sa wa o bile wa utlwa gore batho ba babedi ba bola batho da mara wena wa bona ke Yeah, I heard thereafter, yes. I heard about that, but I didn't see it.
And did you see anyone being injured during this altercation?
Ali nako yona yo o bile wa bona motho mongwe a bile a tswa kotsi ya bile go ba
Okay, ke ile ka tloga mona le nna ka tla mo ka tla ka ke driver go tla yana.
Well, I left the spot where I had stopped and then I go down.
E ke drive ka tla mo ya re ke fitla fa.
As he indicated, Chair.
Indicates that he went down Street B in the direction of the intersection we spoke about. He turned right, his right, into Street A, which he also indicated.
Yes, down A Street, yes.
Ya re ke tsamela gongwe fana ka thola molaetsa gore gona le motho o lemaletseng o ka mo Skagen workshop.
Well, as I was driving down Bonsafoot, I was driving, I'm indicating my route. When I arrive at that spot where I'm showing, somebody pointed with a finger that there's somebody who has been injured. Is in the scuttle shop there, where I'm indicating.
What you showed us is that you stopped in line with the second rectangle, which I take as the roof of a building. As one comes from the intersection, moving left across the photograph, there are 2 white rectangles, which I take as buildings with roofs. And you indicated you stopped more or less where there's a vehicle, actually, as we can see, next to the second one as one moves up towards the left. And you indicate that you were then, when you were there, you were told that there was someone injured at the Schagen workshop, which is spelled Schagen, correctly and on the photograph, but incorrectly in your statement, paragraph 8.
That is incorrect, yeah. It's not incorrect.
Mr. Chairperson, I now want to move on to the Sunday. I don't know if you want to take an adjournment at this stage.
Just before we take the adjournment, if we finish the story of the Saturday, what he says in his statement is there were victims who were shot at C5 and it should be Schagen Workshop. Now, we can see the Schagen Workshop on the photograph, and the evidence was that one of the injured persons was lying there and was taken away by ambulance to the hospital. Where is this? Where was the other one? You talk about C5. Can we see C5 on this photograph?
C5.
What does C5 mean?
Oh, how level la C5 ke block ntate o buang ka ene o na le fan mo morago mona.
I'm indicating, Your Lordship, that is a block where I'm showing.
What I think you showed us, the rectangle with the word Street A appearing in it, is at the bottom of a building with a bluish roof, which I take is one of the hostel buildings. Is that right?
And
yes, what you show us is at the top, as it were, as one looks at the photograph of that hostel building. That's the area that you talked about. Is that C? That's called known as C5.
C5 would go the most better. That's the level of
no, C5. We are hospital. Hospital is a camotlas.
No, there's hospital situated
somewhere. Ki block mon.
There's a block where I'm
hostel.
The hostel.
It's a hostel block.
That hostel block is known as C5. Is that right?
C5.
Yes, that is C5.
Now, the other person, one injured person was found near the Schagen workshop. And you said the other one was found at C5. Now, C5 is that block. But where exactly on the photograph are you able to tell us where that was that person?
Okay, I'll level lamon.
If you look there, that's a skachel where I'm indicating. There's the yard of the skachel. There's a passage in between there, as I'm indicating. One can walk there. He was seated there where I'm indicating.
What you're indicating is the other injured person, was near the top left-hand corner of that block as we see it on the program. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. Mr. Van As, you said you wanted a tea German.
I'm in your hands, Mr. Chairperson, but before I go into the Sunday, this is perhaps an appropriate time.
All right, well, you see, if we take the tea German, all right, we'll take a short break of 5 or 10 minutes now, and then we'll take the tea German closer to noon, so we can go through to 1 o'clock without further mishap.
Thank
Off.
Commission resumes. Would you, Madam Interpreter, would you please tell the witness he's still under oath?
Re mo tlogelwa ga tse go go gopotse gore o santse o ikanne go bua nnete. Go yalo?
Mr. Finas.
Go yalo, Mama.
Confirmed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Motlogewa, I now want to go to the 12th of August 2012, the Sunday.
Ga tse ge ya no re go tsa re go isa go Sontaga ya di 12 sa August 2012.
Can you remember when you came on duty that day?
Ga tse wa gopola gore o hitlile neng ko mmerekong tsatsi leo?
Ke a gopola.
I do.
And what time was it?
O hitlile nako mang?
Ka hora ya borataro mo mosong.
At 6 in the morning.
Now you say in paragraph 9 of your statement at around about 9 o'clock that morning, you received a radio call from Deerwald Low.
Ga tse ge mo paragraph ya bo 9 wena o re ge o ile wa fumana molaetsa go tswa go re lao. Go yalo?
Ke nnete.
Yes, it is so.
Could we please have exhibit quadruple A 35.3 on the screen?
Ga tse ge o re mo quadruple A.
I want you to please tell the Commission, you say you travelled in your vehicle to this area. Please tell the Commission, where did you stop your vehicle?
Ga tse wena o re ge o tsamaile o ganna koloi ya gago go tswa ge o hitlile wa ema kae teng ko? On that day, I used this road, as he is indicating.
Mr. Finas, if we go back to Mr. Tipp's exhibit, then we've got Street A and Street B and all that kind of thing. Things are marked. Makes it much easier. Otherwise, we'll talk about the road that goes to the left and the road that goes to the right.
Mr. Chairperson, we tried that. We just couldn't get this area in Mr. Tipp's photographs. Mr. Wesley and I tried that during the adjournment to see if we couldn't get a...
If it's only one road, it doesn't really matter. But if you're going to go on like this, then So what he indicated was the road which we were talking about earlier, with a loop in it, which runs at right angles to the road that runs up from the bottom right hand of the photograph, diagonally slightly to the left. That's what he
Could you please show us where you parked your vehicle?
I parked my vehicle where I am indicating now.
He indicates, as one moves from the right-hand side of the photograph, at the beginning of the loop, just in the area contained within the loop, top right-hand corner of the loop, actually, that's where he stopped his car. His vehicle.
And in what direction was the vehicle facing?
In that direction that I'm indicating.
Facing the T junction.
T junction. It is true.
And you say in your statement that there was then a discussion between certain of the security officers and Mr. Mabelani. Can you please tell us about that?
I'm sorry, before we get there, Mr. Mas, in his statement, paragraph 10, he talks about the superintendent was already at the side of the Vonnegut Hospital. Who was the superintendent?
Is it of the typed or
typed statement?
Typed statement. Paragraph 10.
Two of the bundle of documents. Paragraph 10, near the top of the page, the third line says, the superintendent was already at the side of Vonnegut Hospital. Now, to whom were you referring when you spoke of the superintendent?
I was referring to Mr. Mabelane and Mr. Funde.
Who is the superintendent then?
You're talking about
both of them.
They are both superintendents.
Thank you.
You said the superintendent was already at the side of Vonnegut Hospital by the time he summoned us for backup. Which of the superintendents were you referring?
Superintendent una asetse ali mo haufi le mo a rileng ra mo hitlhela a le teng ko safi o ile a be e le gore o bua le rona gate o bua mang ke mang o bua ka eng mo gare ga ba babedi
Ke bua ka bone ba le babedi.
I am referring to both.
Carry on, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. And what did the superintendents, Mr. Fundi and Mr. Mabalani, what did they say to you?
Wearing. What were they wearing?
What did they say to you?
Oh, thank you. Gate ge re Mabelane le re Fundi ba rileng ko go wena ka nako eo.
Okay, motho wa buile le nna ke Ntate Mabelane.
The person who spoke to me was Mr. Mabelane.
Ampha molaetsa gore gate go na le batho ke ba le batla ka mo le ba lebile ko ntlheng ya di office tsa NAM.
He gave me a message saying that it is alleged that there are people who are coming in the direction of NUM offices. I also could see that large crowd. Mr. Mabelani then instructed me that we should block those people not to go to the NUM offices. We then turned back as I had met him.
Hostel kitchen.
I met him at the hostel kitchen.
Perhaps show us there.
Hostel kitchen.
If maybe you can turn it back. Because
the witness is asking that the photo be
let's just
moved left or right. East or left or right or
left.
More to the left.
What he's indicating, I'm not sure it's how material it is. What he's indicating, that road that we talked about earlier, which has the loop in it, which runs from right to left across the photograph, he indicated that the place where he met Mr. Superintendent Mabalani was off the photograph but to the left.
Confirmed, Chair. We drove going back, yeah, up to where we stopped, indicator happy, where the witness is now indicating. I stopped the vehicle.
Indicating is the position in the area in the loop that you indicated to us earlier.
Correct, Chair.
And what did Mr. Mabalani say to you?
Jaaka ke tlhalositse Ntate Mabelane o itse mo go rona a reng ga ra dumela ra re se ka re la tlalla bontate bao of mob o tlanka mono gore o se fitele go di office tsa NUM.
As I had earlier said, Mr. Mabelani said we should not allow the mob to go towards NUM offices.
Me re ba thibele ka go ba dikoloi ka line.
He then said we should block them by placing our vehicles in a line.
Menna ka bona seo mo go nna se sentle.
How is this
sentle?
Okay. I then realized that that was not right to do that.
In a line where?
How line in our line according to him, when he looks at the picture, that is Skagen. According to his request, he wanted us to form a line there.
The line you indicated was a line across the road. That's the road runs from right to left in the photograph, and more or less in line with the left-hand end of the loop that we can see there.
Correct.
Were the people who were coming, the take it we can call them strikers for brevity purposes. Where were they coming? Were they coming along that road from the left-hand side of the road?
As I'm indicating now, yes, Chair, from the corner.
Coming from the left-hand side of the photograph, along that road. Yeah. Okay.
Correct, Chair.
Now, so before you carry on, I noticed from paragraph 10 that you give 11 names of people who were there. That's including Mr. Mabelani and Mr. Fundi, but of course not including you. So does that mean there were altogether 12 security people from London there at the spot at the time?
Maina ao a kwetse mo ke a 12 gate ge a tsenetsa bo re mabelane bo refundi mme la ga go leina ha le yo mo go ra gore mo o hitletse batho e le batho ba 12.
Ke ipalla mo go bone.
I was also part of that.
That's what I mean. So there were 12 people altogether.
There
were 11 listed in the paragraph, including Mr. Mabelani and Mr. Fundi. Your name is not there. So am I correct in thinking there were 12 of you there?
We were 12.
You go on to say in the next paragraph that there were about 2,000 strikers approaching. Is that right?
Paragraph
on your estimation.
Ili 2,000. Such strikers se ne se tla se libile. Go yalo? Yes, it was my estimation.
So the 12 of you were expected to block this approximately 2,000 strikers.
Gora gore ka mantso a mang lona le 12 yalo no go tilwe le thibe batho ba ka bang makgolo a dikete tse pedi. It is true, yes.
And there were 2 security officers to a vehicle. Am I correct? That was Mr. Masibi's evidence yesterday.
Khati re Masibi ena a re koloi engwe le engwe ine la isitse batho ba babedi. Correct.
So Mr. Mabelani wanted to block the road with 6 security vehicles.
Gora gore re Mabelane o na batla gore makoloi a 6 a tseletse ibe wona a thibang se tshaba se. I agree according to the number that was there.
And what did you think of this idea?
I did not concur with him.
Why not?
I could see that it was risky.
Carry on.
I then decided that I am not going to stop there. Chair, the witness was indicating, if you could again indicate that I will not stop there.
What you're indicating, you wouldn't stop at the place you indicated to us earlier, that's to say in the loop at the right-hand end of the loop. That's where you told us you brought your vehicle to stop.
Correct. Okay.
All right. What did the 12 security officers do then, after you've now moved your vehicle away and parked it?
The security tell it at 12 di dirile.
Okay,
as I was parking my car where I had earlier indicated, I then saw the other security officers in the area that he has indicated. If you could again indicate, Chair. I saw the other security officers in that area.
You can describe that area with more particularity. It's difficult to follow. Is it midway against the loop, the island in the loop? It's midway there, is that right? Was that across the road that we talked about?
Ka mo gare, mama.
It was inside, not across the road.
Inside the loop. Inside the loop. Is that right?
Nele ka mo gare ga loop.
Ke nnete?
Inside the loop, Chair.
Which way were you facing?
Hati wena koloi ya gago ne
Were the
e lebile
vehicles
kae?
facing?
Koloi ya ka e ne eme mona e lebeletse kwana.
My vehicle was standing where I had indicated, facing
Towards the intersection.
towards the intersection.
Ke nnete?
Correct?
And what did the security officers do? Did they form a line then?
Gate ge basebetsi mmogo di security tse ding tsona di ile tsa dira eng ba ile ba etsa mola o ne ba kopile gore ba o dire.
Ke nnete?
Yes, they did.
And can you show the commission where was that line formed on the
Gate ge
photograph?
supa o bontshe modula setilo le di commissionera gore ge ke kae mo ba irile mola teng.
Ha ke gopola e ka nna gongwe fela fa.
If I remember, it could be somewhere there, as I'm indicating.
Ka mo gare ga loop.
In the middle of the loop.
In the middle of the island in the loop.
Gati mo gare ga island kgotsa loop.
Mo loop mama, ka mo gare ka.
The loop, inside the loop.
Now, your vehicle was facing towards the intersection. In other words,
Gati
your
koloi ya gago
vehicle's
ne
back was
shebile
towards the approaching strikers. Is that right?
ko intersection o tshore ge morago wa koloi wa gago o furaletse di strikers ne di tla go ya.
Ke nnete mama.
Correct, Chair.
And the other 5 vehicles driven by your colleagues, were they also facing in the same direction?
Makoloi ale a 5 ana a kgannwa ke basebetsi mmogo le ona na shebile ka tsela e le gago ne shebile ka teng.
Ke kopa go simolola koloi ya Polo.
May I start with the Polo vehicle?
Koloi ya Polo e ne eme fana.
The witness is indicating where the Polo vehicle was standing.
Koloi e ke buang ka yone ke re ke ya Protea Coin e ne le mo tseleng e
The
eme.
car I mentioned, the Protea coin one, stood where I indicated now.
Le nngwe ya security.
We better get this on the record one by one. The first vehicle you spoke about, that was in the middle of the island of the loop, above the white rectangle which we see on the photograph,
Mo island in the loop. Ya ka re bona mo
close to the road. And the second vehicle you referred to, the Protea one, that was
Protea.
on the right hand, towards the right hand top corner of the loop. Was that in the road itself? Or?
E ne le mo tseleng.
Yes, the Protea one was on the road.
The first one you spoke about, which way was that facing? The one that was in the middle of the loop, close to the road, above that white rectangle we see.
Koloi ya pele o buileng ka yona e ne le gore ne le mo magareng ga lopuele gaufi le ne yeme yang yona e shebile kae.
Ke Polo ke buang ka yone e ne e lebeletse kwana.
The Polo was facing the intersection.
The Protea vehicle, the second one you referred to, was that also facing the intersection?
Ya Protea yona ne shebile kae.
Le yone e ne e lebeletse kwana.
In the same direction, the intersection.
The counted now for 3 vehicles. What the
other 3?
Security
The other security vehicle was where I have first indicated it was also facing the intersection.
You point to a spot near the right hand, in the road, but near the right hand top corner of the loop.
Correct, Chair.
In reference to Protea vehicle, is that an armored vehicle?
No, Mama, it's soft skin vehicle.
No, it was not an armored vehicle, but a soft skin. What is soft?
Soft skin vehicle.
Soft skin. Or it was an ordinary vehicle.
And then there's 2 more vehicles. Yes, no, soft skin is the expression they use for a vehicle that's not an armored vehicle.
Thank you, Chair.
It can easily be penetrated by things that shouldn't be fired at it.
Thank you,
So you were counted for 4 vehicles. Now, what happened? Tell us about the other 2, if you can.
Ha ke gopola sentle fana go na le koloi e nngwe e ne eme fana
If I remember well, there was another vehicle which had stopped where I am indicating now, but it was facing down.
What you indicate is a spot to the right of the beginning of the loop. As one approaches from the intersection side. To the right of that, there appears to be bushes or trees. And between the bushes and the trees and the road, there's an open space, and that's where you indicated this vehicle was. Is that correct? What sort of vehicle was that, you know?
It was a normal sedan, the one similar to the ones we were using.
You know, the reason I ask you is, according to the evidence, Mr. Fundi and Mr. Mabulani, they were using a blue and white Nissan Lavina. Is that the vehicle you're referring to, or was it another one?
Yes, Your Worship, but I am coming to the Lavina.
The vehicle you're talking about now is not the vehicle that Mr. Fundi and Mr. Mabulani used, but it was another vehicle, also a Nissan Lavina. Do I understand correctly?
No, no, Chair, it was not a Nissan Lavina, it was a van.
A van. Yes. Okay. Now the last vehicle I think is a Nissan Lavina. Can you tell us where that was?
If I remember well, the Lavina was parked where I'm indicating now. But it was facing down.
What you're indicating is the roadway which is part of that loop. You're indicating a spot to the left of those bushes or trees which we referred to earlier. And this vehicle, you say, was also pointing downwards, that's towards the bottom of the photograph.
Correct, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Now, you say the line's been formed, and were you armed that day? Did you have a firearm with you?
No, I was SIM seated here today.
And what did you do at that stage?
I alighted out of the vehicle. I alighted out of the vehicle. As I went back, I then saw that my colleagues had already formed the line that I had mentioned. As I was walking towards them, then I saw my co-colleague, the one I work with. It is Mr. Dibakwane. He had placed his shotgun on the ground and he had his hands were up. As now surrendering. When I observed him, it was as though he was trying to speak or to address the group that was coming towards him.
Where was the group, or rather, more accurately, where were the front persons in the group at that stage?
According to me, they were walking where I am indicating now.
Looks at the photograph, one sees to the left of that loop there's a building with a roof that's partly dark blue and partly light blue.
building
And if one goes below that building across the road, there are two objects. I don't know what, I can't see what they are from the photograph. One white and one brown. And just to the left of those two objects is the point that you've shown us.
Chair, it is slightly to the back, because the building you are referring to, the one with the blue color, is the Skachen building.
Thank you.
Right, so you
So what you showed us was below the Skachen building, as one looks at the photograph, actually across the road, and then there are objects, I don't know what they are. Perhaps you can tell me. One looks like a white circle, one below that a brownish object. What are they, you know?
Yes, Chair, but slightly behind those two
those the
brown
things
and
you're referring
white
to, Mr. Chairperson?
objects.
Are those the objects you're referring to on the...
Are they?
RA. He says just slightly behind those
I just
objects.
need to know what they are. So it's better to describe them as what they are rather than objects. If you don't know what they are, we won't waste time.
You know what those objects are, the ones I'm putting the strobe light on?
If I remember well, there was a big boulder and a dust bin. Big rock, yeah.
They're actually rocks. Now, the front members of the group of strikers were about 2,000 of them, I think you said. Front ones were about there. And Mr. Debekwani had put his shotgun on the ground and raised his hands in the air.
Khathi wena o re wa pele go group ele ya 2000 o ne a le mo wena o re boleletseng teng e be le go ready bakwane o beile shotgun hatsi a ebise matsogo ka wena tsela e. Correct, Chair.
And what did he do? You say, did he speak to the advancing strikers?
Ready bakwane o dirile eng o ile a bua na le di strikers se ne di tla di mo lebile.
Ha ke ya ke lebile go gene actually tse matsogo yalo.
As I walked towards him, whilst he had lifted his hands up, according to what my observation, I thought that he was trying to stop them from advancing towards him by that hand gesture. I then reached where he was. I tried to walk past him a bit. I also lifted my hands up, trying to stop the advance, those men who were advancing, and also trying to find out what the problem was. As it was, that large group that I spoke about, we're now in a crouching position singing. Some were clashing the tipi. Some still weapons. They were waving as I am doing now, using my left hand, meaning get out of the way. I stood where I was and said, "Oh, please, men. What is the problem? What is going on?" It seemed like they were not hearing what I was saying, as there was a large noise. As we were standing there, and then advancing towards us in the crouching position. One person who was behind me on my right shot with a rubber bullet towards the strikers. But I could not see who it was as I was facing the strikers. I stood at that moment. The men who were coming in a crouching position towards us, singing. Then suddenly stood up and then ran very fast towards us. I also ran. Got into the vehicle that I had mentioned and then closed the door. When I was driving there, as I had indicated, the car that I am talking about was trying to reverse from that spot. It nearly collided into me as I drove very fast towards the intersection.
So the spot you pointed out is the spot in the road immediately above those bushes or trees, which we can see if we refer to them.
Correct, Chair.
Now, the strikers who were approaching you from whom
Khathi
you
di strikers
were
di
escaping,
atla.
they were singing, you told us.
Babina.
Did you tell us they were singing? You say in your statement they were singing.
You
did tell us they were singing. What were they singing? Could you hear?
The strikers ne ditla dibina aker khathi ne babina eng no utla se ne ba se bina na.
Awana ngutla modumo la ka re nna maikalelo ya ka fela ke batla gore ke leke go emisa bontate ba le di utla rata go diragalang.
No, Chair, I just heard the sound of the singing. My intention was just to speak to them and ask them what the problem was.
At the time you were speaking to them, were you able to see whether they had anything in their possession?
Rahat nako ge wena o buisana le bona o leka go buisana le bona ra utlwana ra o kgonne go bona na gore gona di se ba se tshwereng mo batsogong a bona.
O no kgona go bona ba ba tshwere dilo tse di lebegang di le bogale mo go bone.
Yes, one could see they had dangerous weapons.
What sort of dangerous weapons?
Khati di bitsa tse bogale ile eng di bue gore ke di eng.
O ndi ditobane
Nopkiris.
Ba ba tshole di tse di phanga.
Some had pangas. That is what I saw.
Thank you. Is Mr. Vanas, would you like to carry on with the
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. And how were they dressed, the strikers? What were they wearing?
The strikers.
Ba ba pere kobo ba ba ifasitse motlhong ka di malapa ama
Some had blankets over their shoulders. Some had red cloths around their heads.
And you testified that you climbed into your vehicle and you drove away. How far did you drive? Where did you stop? Can you perhaps show us on the photograph?
The witness is indicating that I drove and ran up to where I'm indicating now.
Indicating a spot on the, what I think is described as Street B in the other photograph, a point, he turned right when he got to the intersection, went down the road, and ended up in a point which is off the screen to the far right.
Street B, right, correct, Chair.
And what did you observe from that point?
Before I could reach the spot that I had earlier indicated, as I was where I'm indicating now, indicator, as I was there,
boididi bo tlileng bo taboga bo tla fana.
The group, the big group, then ran towards where I'm indicating now, up to where I'm indicating now.
Bone bo kwanetse koloi ya bo eni eme fa ya bo Mr. Mabelane.
What you indicate now is a spot at the beginning of the loop as one approaches from the right-hand side, in line with those bushes or trees that we referred to earlier, in the roadway there.
Correct, Chair.
E ke re boididi yo batho bana ba tla ba taba go ba lelekise go afana. Ke ba kgobokanetse koloi eni eme fana eni e lebega ile koloi ya bo Mr. Mabelane.
That group had surrounded a vehicle which looked like the one Mr. Mabelane and Fundi were driving or were in.
Bangwe bona ba fitile ba ngata ka matlapa go ya go dikoloi tse di sia di tshabelamo.
Some strikers ran past that car and started throwing stones at the cars which were at the cars which were driving away from that spot.
We drove
up to the spot that is that I indicated because we now realize that they were far from us. As I was standing there, we then realized that Mr. Mabelane's car was not amongst the cars which were where we were. That is when I took the phone, that is the company phone. I then phoned to the control room. I then spoke to a female person. I then said the following to her, ma'am, where we are standing or parked, it seems like we are short of some. We are not. The people I could not see are Mr. Mabelane and Mr. Fundi. Please call them and find out their whereabouts. I stood and waited, and she returned the call, the female. Before the female could call me back, there was one police car that arrived at the scene. The police asked what was happening. We said to them, you can also see what is happening in front of you. The police also said, no, we cannot approach the scene as the vehicle that we were using was a small vehicle. The female then called me back and told me that she could not go through to Mr. Mabalane's phones, that is Mr. Mabalane and Mr. Fundi's phones. As we were standing there, we then saw a big smoke. The smoke was coming from where the Polo was parked or standing.
The Polo, was that the vehicle that Mr. Masibi had been driving?
Correct, Chair. When we saw the smoke then, we realized that the Polo is on fire. A few minutes thereafter, we then saw a second smoke. It seemed the smoke was coming from the car which was driven by Mr. Mabelane and Fundi. It also seemed to be on fire.
go na le bangwe ba bone ba ile ba feta e ka re ba ya ntlheng ele ya nam office.
Some of the mob, bahita, ba siya.
Ba feta.
Some of the big mob then walked past in the direction of NUM officers. They proceeded in that direction. I do not know where they were going. They then came back.
Street A.
And it happened, as I'm indicating now, that in that road, which is named A, yes, there were many people there. The two cars were burning. One could see that they were on fire. As we were standing, okay, some of our colleagues then arrived. I stood where I was standing. After a while, I realized that there were no longer too many people near where the two cars were burning. I then drove with Mr. Dibakwane and drove back. When we arrived at the spot that I'm indicating now, there were now too many police officers.
It's the spot near where the two vehicles were burning.
Correct, Chair. He had also indicated we then parked our car where I am indicated.
That's further down near the to the right of the bottom of the loop, really.
And were other members of Lonman Security and the police there already when you arrived back there?
Excuse me?
Were there other members of Lonman Security and police already on the scene when you returned?
Ikabe no gona le di security tsa Lonman le mapodisi ha le hitla ko.
Oh, ke kopanlene fana ke gopola le bitso la gago ke ene kopanlene mare mo e le maponisa mo ba eme fana.
Ra are slow a ke re phela indicator here we kwana.
Oh, okay.
Start indicate.
Okay.
La pele bo indicator where I'm indicating now ke mo go diregang.
Ke kopane le o mongwe wa basebetsi ba rona fana.
That is where I met one of my colleagues.
That was in an open space to the right of where you parked your vehicle.
Ke mo go tulong e bulegile ka mo letsogong la go ja le mo o no pakile teng. O tsetse pele wa supa gape ra a re
ke nnete ma.
O supile kae mo ga go bedi o no go dira.
Where
I am now indicating that whole area were full of police.
The whole area below those trees there that we can see that we spoke about before.
Correct, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Blas.
Mr. Chairperson, I'm not going to deal with the bodies and that. I think we can just move on to the Monday.
Well, I suggest we move on to the Monday after we've taken tea. We'll take tea in German 15 minutes. You won't be finished by 1 o'clock today, Atlas.
I will, thank you, Mr.
And the first cross-examiner is going to be Mr. Who's the first cross-examiner going to be? From Mr. Montepera from the evidence leaders. And after that? How long are you going to be, Mr. Montepera?
I will be about 45 minutes.
How long?
45 minutes.
45 minutes. So it sounds as if you're lucky, you'll finish at 1 o'clock when we adjourn. You may actually have to continue on Monday morning, but let's be optimistic and hope you can finish by 1. Let's take the German now.